half did not have their legs. Their shooting was atrocious. They came out of a grueling 7-game series. They did not have energy in the fourth quarter. They just, the numbers tell you they fell off a cliff in the fourth quarter. Shot 26% from 3 in the game, 2 for 19 in the second half. They had no legs left. Okay, so I'm not going to overreact to game one. They did generate 7 more unguarded catch and shoot threes. They just couldn't hit any of them. So they generated all sorts of good looks. They airballed open jumpers. But here's the thing. I'm not sure this Wemby, 22 years old, still growing, still developing his body, I'm not sure if he can handle the strength, the girth of Mitchell Robinson, Cat, and OG. I think he may need another offseason and another 15 pounds. He got pushed around on both ends. He got pushed all over the floor. He looks like skinny Giannis. Now, Giannis, about year 5, it didn't look the same. I look at Cat. Say what you want about Cat's defense. He was incredibly sturdy on the defensive end last night. And Mitchell Robinson is 7 feet tall and 245 pounds. That is man strength. That is years in an NBA weight training program. Both ends of the floor, they are pushing Wemby all over the place. OG, we talked about OG yesterday. He's got a lower center of gravity. Well, when you're 7'5", everybody's got a lower center of gravity. And Cat was pushing him around. Mitchell Robinson was. Now, listen, the Spurs are going to shoot better. Again, they were generating good catch-and-shoot looks, more than the Knicks. And Dylan Harper will play more late in the game. Hey, De'Aaron Fox, that's not it.
Okay. So, that's one hell of a way to kick off a series. Right now, honestly, it's almost a direct reflection of what went down with the Minnesota Timberwolves. It's that same feeling, oh, Wemby isn't ready. Wemby got shoved around. They targeted Wemby. Nobody's scared of Wemby. That's the exact clip I showed you all after San Antonio, back when they won the Western Conference Finals. So the parallels here are pretty striking. Seriously. But look, this was always going to be, once again, an ongoing issue of rest versus energy. This also looks a lot like what we witnessed when Oklahoma City played San Antonio. I mean, the Knicks have had a ridiculously easy schedule up to this point. Now, to be honest, I'm still split on whether that ever truly evens out once the season is underway. I genuinely don't know the answer to that. That said, I do believe the Knicks walked away with this game. But that doesn't automatically mean they didn't deserve to win it. I think when we throw around phrases like "they stole that one" or similar expressions, you hear it all the time in football, the question always becomes, is this more about the Eagles succeeding or the Chiefs failing? Right? Like, did Philly actually win that contest, or did Kansas City just lose it? We debate that after practically every single football game. And that's because you're dealing with a single matchup. And unless it's a divisional game, the only way we'd see those two sides meet again is in the Super Bowl or somewhere in the postseason. From my perspective, basketball is just different because of how the game flows, the constant back-and-forth nature late in games, the final 5 minutes, the fourth quarter, making a shot, missing a shot. It's not the same as talking about offense and defense in football. So when we say, hey, did the Knicks steal game 1, that wording implies they had no business winning, or that this was more about the Spurs collapsing than New York rising up. And I just fundamentally disagree with that take. To me, the Knicks were simply better prepared and more capable of executing when it counted most. That's really what it boiled down to. But having said that, the basketball on both ends was brilliant. There was a moment where you thought, are the Knicks about to get blown off the floor? Jalen Brunson is banged up, right? They're on the road, the crowd is going crazy, and then they just say, no, and the Knicks fire right back. But then the Spurs had a counter for every single big New York play. Every time the Knicks made a huge play to try to shift momentum, the Spurs snuffed it out immediately. Then New York takes the lead and starts to stretch the gap, and you're thinking, wow, did they just completely flip the script here? And then San Antonio fights back. Now the Spurs are ahead with, I forget, maybe 2 minutes left or a minute 30, somewhere in that range. They're up by 1. Then Brunson drills a 3. That was just fantastic BA. Skepball. I genuinely feel bad that these conversations always start with us coming into these games carrying such rigid opinions and strong preconceptions, and nobody ever wants to let go of them. It's always, see? I knew Wemby was too thin, can't do this or that. Well, I knew this. I knew that. And you just want to scream, this was simply great basketball. And I mean it, it really was. This was the first time since, I think they said 2021, that they went into the fourth quarter tied. That's the stat line we saw, I believe. I can't recall if it was the fourth quarter specifically or something else. Either way, my reaction was just, that's awesome. And the reality is that both teams arrived at that point for completely different reasons. Right? Both got there through different paths. And it's strange, because on one hand, I'm watching this game and thinking to myself, man, this would be a really tough loss for San Antonio. Because early on, and this is where the game shifted, the Spurs were playing their absolute best. They looked phenomenal. Meanwhile, the Knicks did not. Jalen Brunson couldn't get anything going, couldn't buy a shot. He's taking hits. He's in the lineup, then he's out. He's yelling at the officials. Everything felt chaotic and broken. Nobody on the Knicks was really hitting their looks. And the Spurs were getting contributions from everywhere. Champagny was knocking down shots left and right. What was he at 1 point, 5 for 6 from deep? Harp. Scored, what, 6 points in 6 minutes? Something like that. Just buckets back to back. Everyone was firing on all cylinders. Castle was rising up for second chance layups and crashing the glass. Wemby was aggressive, hitting shots, but not forcing anything or demanding the ball every possession. So you had this beautifully balanced Spurs attack combined with the Knicks playing some genuinely ugly basketball. And sure, part of that is credit to the Spurs for being disruptive, but it was almost a perfect storm. You're sitting there saying, okay, wow. If New York somehow pulls this out, that's a devastating loss for San Antonio. And that's exactly why I'm comfortable with the whole Knicks stole it angle, because this eventually turned into a story of 2 halves, or maybe 2 quarters. Where the Spurs absolutely ran out of gas, and the Knicks absolutely did not. So it's not really about stealing anything. Because New York played brilliantly when it mattered most. And therefore, I can't look at it through the lens of, oh, well, San Antonio just gave that one away, or that's a terrible loss because they should have won. Because down the stretch, they shouldn't have won. They were not playing high-quality enough basketball. If they had kept playing the way they did early in the game, sure. But that's not what happened. You didn't see the Knicks suddenly catch fire and hit every impossible shot. No. What you saw, and this is how you know players are exhausted, you saw the overall quality of basketball decline. The passing got sloppier. The decision-making got worse. The shot selection deteriorated. That's fatigue. You just start making those kinds of mistakes. Think about it, when you're physically tired, when you haven't slept well, your judgment is off. You can't even decide what to eat, or you stand in front of the fridge for 5 minutes going, wait, what am I even doing right now? You see hints of that when your body is worn down from playing too much basketball. And you saw that exact thing happen. You're just watching like, oh man, what are you doing there? Meanwhile, the Knicks didn't have that problem, at least not in Game 1. Not at all. And the Knicks have always excelled at what I like to call organized chaos. When everything speeds up, the ball is flying around, bodies are crashing, shots are going in or missing, the clock is at a minute 30, a minute 10, 50 seconds left, you're up 2, down 1, up 3, down 4, that's their element. It's something you have to keep improving at, and that only comes with experience. The Knicks clearly have it. So I thought this ended up being a fantastic game. I know the final score says 105-95, but this was effectively a one-possession contest for most of the night. It really was. Which is great. What more could you ask for? But I do think, ultimately, the Knicks took Game 1. But again, that doesn't mean they didn't earn it, or that the Spurs choked it away. I think there's plenty to like on both sides. You watch a game like this, and you can feel great about New York, feel confident in them, and I don't think you have to lose faith in San Antonio or feel less strongly about them than you did coming into this matchup. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Spurs respond. That's what this entire run for San Antonio has always been about, how they respond, how they keep growing, how they keep evolving. And this is what the Knicks have been doing, they keep winning games in ways that make you scratch your head, because people have said the same thing about Atlanta, about Philadelphia, about Cleveland. There's this persistent feeling of the Knicks stole that one, or the Knicks had no business winning that game, and yet they keep doing it. Over and over. That's how they win down the stretch. That's the quality of basketball they play in crunch time. And speaking of which, I didn't even love how Wemby's rest was managed, because we're talking about the final minutes and Wemby is on the bench. Meanwhile, Jalen Brunson sat for a stretch and then was able to close out the game playing heavy minutes. At that point, I'm almost thinking, wouldn't you want to align Wemby's rest with Brunson's rest? So yeah, the fourth quarter rotation management was interesting. But this is all part of the process for San Antonio. Because when we talk about experience, it's not just about whether you've been to the finals or not. It's about whether you've played this much basketball, period. And the Knicks, over these past few years, with Brunson, Hart, Mikal Bridges, they've been here. They've logged a lot of deep playoff minutes in a way that the Spurs simply haven't. And you could see that. You could see it clearly, even from a coaching standpoint as well. So all of this feels pretty much par for the course. I'm excited for the next game and for this whole series. I was looking at the schedule, they have a couple of 2-day breaks between games. Not every game, but I think I counted 2 or 3 of those, which will be interesting to see if that affects energy levels at all. I know when Horst said he thought Wemby looked lethargic and low energy. I don't know if I agree with that. I think the entire Spurs mindset was we're not going to try to do anything over the top. I thought San Antonio had great energy early on, and I thought Wembanyama was assertive and wanted the ball. But I do still think there's too much of Wemby playing away from the basket instead of his own game. Like I said, he's playing like Kevin Durant, but he is not Kevin Durant. That's not his style, at least not right now. And I don't think it was just because the Knicks defense pushed him around, I mean, Hartenstein was literally playing tackle football with him. So I don't attribute that to New York's defense. That's why I'm really curious to see what round 2, or game 2, looks like. And the final point I'll make is this is the same problem we saw with De'Aaron Fox, and the same problem with Williams in Oklahoma City. When you're playing guys who aren't 100% right, they almost hurt you more because you're expecting production that they simply cannot deliver. De'Aaron Fox is still clearly struggling with that high ankle sprain, I think they said. You can just see he's not the same player he was earlier in the season or even earlier in the playoffs. And that's a huge disappointment and a real loss. Now, with him on the floor, I don't want to call it a liability, but it reminds me so much, and this was a few years ago now, it's hard to keep track of injuries, of Kawhi Leonard when he was playing. I forget which team they were facing, but it was the playoffs, with Paul George at the time, and it was clear Kawhi wasn't 100%. And everyone was saying, okay, as long as we have Kawhi back, we can make a run. But it was so obvious he wasn't healthy. And you just thought, get him off the court. The Clippers are simply better without him out there. As hard as that is to admit, a 70% injured Kawhi was doing more harm than good. I'm not saying it's that extreme with De'Aaron Fox. It's just unclear to me whether you can truly rely on him right now, and it could end up being more of a net negative than a net positive. But I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. I'd genuinely love to hear yours. What do you all think about the New York Knicks taking Game 1 from the San Antonio Spurs? Do you have a problem with that phrasing? What did you think of the game? Have your feelings about either team changed? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one, whether you agree with me or not. Let's get some discussions going, maybe a few arguments, but at the end of the day, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd love to have you be part of it. I want to create something we all feel genuinely connected to, something we're excited to belong to. I think we're well on our way. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, it really helps with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.